a minute because of the cough. The Rebbe would take a minute to drink some tea. So the Rebbe said, hot tea is 6 minutes. It's not a minute. And why should somebody wait for me for 6 minutes while I'm drinking tea? It's the true nature. If a world was, when the world will be perfect, we'll all be like that. Because that's normal. Normal means there's nothing interesting about me other than what I can do for you. We need to understand what the challenge of our day is. And to understand the challenge of our day, we have to understand the Nasi Hadir. Because the leader of every generation, the head, has to fit the body. So whatever is going on, and whatever the test and the issue of the generation is, that's what the tzaddik of the generation provides an antidote, or the alternative. In the end of days, one of the greatest things that's going to happen is that on that day, by Yom Hahu, Yihi Hashem Echad U'Shmei Echad. God will be one and His name will be one. And that describes a perfect world, completely in touch with truth and reality the way it really is. And until then, we're not seeing the truth. There's a real beautiful description from the previous Rebbe on what nature really is. Do we really know nature? Do we know what this world really is? We don't. Because we look through biased eyes. We see what we want to see. We see what's appealing, what makes sense to us, and disregard what doesn't. And also, in creating the world, God conceals Himself. So you look at the world and you don't see what is concealed. But the concealed part of the world is its truest nature. That's what it really is. Maybe that's why it needs to be concealed, so that we would dig it out on our own effort and come to it through our choice. But certainly there's no need to conceal a secondary or insignificant part of creation. What would be the point of that? So the Rebbe writes like this. If we could see clearly, if our eyes were open, not to God, to nature, to the world in which we live, then we would see, the Rebbe says, that every inanimate object speaks. That's what it really is all about. The inanimate objects tell. The vegetable, the world of vegetation, sings. The animal kingdom praises its creator. And the human being seeks to be something more than human, looks for something higher. That is the truest nature of nature. If we don't see what, like that expression, if we don't see what the inanimate objects are saying, see what I'm saying? How can you see what you're saying? But if we don't appreciate that every object says something, makes a statement, testifies. Like, for example, you look at a stone, inanimate object. It does nothing. The very fact that it does nothing, and it doesn't seem to have any life or any purpose or any direction or whatever, that tells you so clearly, so explicitly, that there's a creator. Because that which is active and running around and has bright colors and makes sounds, you're distracted from the creator to the creation. You notice the creation. You don't think of the creator. But when you get to an inanimate object, and you say, what in the world is that? And your mind immediately goes to its creator. Because when you see something that doesn't have any interest or any flavor or any color, your immediate question is, who did this? And immediately you're thinking about the creator. So every inanimate object speaks. If you don't hear it, you're not seeing nature. You think you know what the world is. You think you know what a glass is. Unless you hear it speaking, you're not in touch with nature. Unless you hear the vegetable sing, I don't mean the vegetable that you eat, the trees and the grass, and if you don't hear it singing, then you don't understand what the vegetable world is. And if you don't notice how every animal is praising its creator, you're not really seeing the animal. So of course we know that there are all sorts of midrashim about how every animal praises God, and we think that that's some kind of a poetic sentiment. It's not. It's the real, true nature. So if you want to be a scientist and understand nature, you have to see the inanimate object speak, and the vegetable sing, and the animal praise, and that will help you be a human being, because a human being is a creature that wants something higher, wants to be higher. Not just praise God, but become more like him, godly. Anyway, so that's if we were in touch with reality and with truth. When will we be completely in touch with reality and truth? Bayem hahu, on that day, when the world reaches its perfection, what is going to happen? Bayem hahu yihi Hashem echad u'shmei echad. Then we will see that the Eibishter, that God is really everything, and that there is nothing besides him. That unity, that oneness, that harmony, that's a perfect world. But what exactly does that mean? What does it feel like? So there are two expressions. There's the expression in Torah, Ein Eid Milvadei, there is no one besides him. And then there's the expression, Ein Eid, God is, and that's all. Not just no one besides him, there's no one with him, because it's all him. It's a little hard to imagine such a complete and total unity. Right? So since everything in holiness has its opposite in unholiness, the Sitra Achra, the other side of everything holy, it's actually a blessing, and it helps us understand godliness when we experience ourselves as being everything, and there's nothing besides me. Now that sounds a little extreme. Who thinks like that? Who really thinks that there's nothing besides me? We all do. That's our default position. We're born knowing only ourselves, and there is nothing else. Hopefully, as we grow, we discover that maybe there is something besides me, someone besides me, a need that is real and it's not even mine. This is great discoveries. This is revolutionary. But even when we discover that, our first thought is, so what do I do with that? So how will that help me? So how can I make a buck? How can I make a living off of this? So in the end, it's still only me. And the more things I discover, the more things I include in me. Oh, now that I know all that, now I'm smarter. So instead of getting out of myself into all of these things that I'm learning and discovering, it all becomes me. So now I know everything. Now I'm smart. Now I'm smarter. Now I'm stronger. Even those things, those experiences that are supposed to humble us, and they do for a minute. But then we recover. We say, see, now I bounce back. I am stronger. I am better. I am... Somebody once said, how do you know that you're not selfish? If you can look at a school picture, class picture, and you don't notice yourself first. Your eye doesn't immediately go to you. That would be amazingly selfless. More than human. Above the norm. So, in the end of days, which is where we are now, 20 years after Gimel Tammuz, the contrast, the holy versus the unholy, has come down to the most fundamental, indivisible truth. Him or me? Is God everything or am I everything? So the Medrash says, God created the world in 6 days, and he didn't create the human being, he didn't create Adam until the 6th, the last day. What is that supposed to show us? What do we learn from this? That if we do what we were created to do, then we are the finishing touch, the perfection of creation, and everything else was created for us. But if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, then we are the bottom and the end of the food chain. We're even lower than the yitush, or the yatush, which is some kind of a bug, an insect, that ingests but does not expel. It therefore lives a very short life. It ingests until it dies because it won't expel. So why does the Medrash necessarily choose the Yitush or the Yatush to be the example of how low a human being is if he's not doing what he was created to do, which is to become higher or greater than human? Because the greatest unholiness is represented by the Yatush. Of course, every animal is instinctive, every animal is selfish, every animal is programmed to survive and to maintain itself, but that's not so unholy. The unholiest thing is the intake without the output. It's almost like a black hole in space. The star is so selfish, it won't give off light. In fact, it won't even give off enough light to be a star. So it extinguishes itself because it won't let you see any. Can it give you any of my life? No. But that's going to choke me. Well, too bad. You're not getting. That's the Yitush. Nobody is going to benefit from me. What's mine stays with me. like in Vegas. So it is the lowest form of life that it actually kills itself, destroys itself, selfishly, which really needs to be understood. What exactly does this mean? As far as we know from psychology, a human being is self-motivated, which means he's motivated to preserve his own existence, to continue his own existence, and to protect himself from that which threatens his existence. I always thought that that's what selfish means. Self-serving. You're hungry and I'm hungry. Who am I going to feed? Myself, because I've got to take care of myself. Got to look out for number one. In fact, in pop psychology, we're actually encouraged to do that. First, love yourself. First, accept yourself. First, take care of yourself. First, be the best you can be. Then, if you have some free time, you'll take care of other people also. But so, That seemed to be the definition of selfishness, self-interest. But it turns out that it's something far worse than that. Selfish is not self-supporting, it's self-destructive. Being selfish doesn't support your existence, it extinguishes your existence. Of course, it starts off subtle, it starts off being self-serving, but then it gets out of control, it becomes a Frankenstein, and you can't even use it for your benefit, it becomes your destruction. And that's, I guess, the difference between selfish and narcissistic. Or in Hasidic language, there's a difference between self-love and self-importance. That a person finds himself precious, that's something more than love. So you can even have a person who hates himself, but he's very precious. In fact, the reason he hates himself is because he's so important. How could he be failing? I'm so necessary to myself, how can I not be the best? How can I even tolerate not being the best or not having what I want? I don't have what I want. I, the precious me, don't have what I want. This is not acceptable. Now this preciousness, Yokor be'enei atzmei, this is not self-serving. It actually is self-destructive. A person starts off being selfish doesn't mean I want everything. That's childish. You start off being selfish means I am real, which is not true, but that's how you feel. I'm real, and therefore nothing should diminish my reality. I don't need anything to make me real. And I won't let anything make me less real. So if I say, I really need you to teach me, show me, anything, little thing. How do you program an iPad? If I have to ask you, that is such a big gap in my perfection. So although it's in my self-interest, I want to know how to program an iPad, but I have to recognize your reality and that my reality is a little bit dependent on your reality. I need you to teach me, or I need you to love me. Well, why would I need you to love me? Why? I'm not perfect. I'm not complete without you. How can that be? That suggests that my reality is not a complete one. So selfishness begins not with, I want everything. Selfishness begins with, I am real, and when you come into the picture, you come into my neighborhood, into my town, you're challenging my reality. What do I need you for? Why are you here? What are you doing? That's why we're suspicious of every stranger. Not because we're afraid he's a criminal. Like, oh, you're also real? What do I need? I don't need that. So the symptom or the expression of this sense of reality, I'm real, is you can't affect me. Because that's such a weakness on my part. To be affected means I'm not complete. So that even if you do me a favor, I can't feel gratitude, I can't feel thankful. Why? What? I needed your favor. Am I not perfect by myself? And again, perfect doesn't mean I can do everything. That's childish. Perfect means I'm perfectly real without you. So any suggestion that you're going to do for me, you're going to help me, you're going to teach me, what? I mean, I'm not real enough? That hurts. Don't like that. So that the first expression of it is, if you try to affect me, I must resist. You can't get to me. Even if you can make me angry, shows that I'm not perfect, that I'm not real enough. You got to me. You appeal to me to the point where I want you in my life. How did that happen? So children, as soon as they start developing this selfishness, the expression of it is, I don't care. Do you hear the arrogance here? I don't care. What, you think I care? If I cared, that would mean I'm not perfect. And this is pre-teens. Whatever, I don't care. And that starts with the parents. Your father wants you to do something. Your mother wants you, I don't care. In other words, you can't touch me. You can't affect me. Then you go to school. So for the first year or two, well, the teacher said, the principal said, the school said, you have to come home, you have to bring your homework, you have to bring a book, you have to bring... And then after a couple of years, it's like, I don't care. You can't affect me. And this grows. You go to work in a company. At first, you have a little respect for the owner, for the president, for the CEO, and after a while, it's like, well, can't affect me. You're going to fire me? I don't care. What, are you going to threaten me? You think I need you? Eventually, you have eliminated all input. Nothing can affect you because you're complete. But then a strange thing happens. You tell yourself that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, and yourself says, I don't care. You can't tell me what to do. You say, wait a minute, this is me talking. I'm telling you not to do that. Doesn't care. Well, now you're really in trouble. Your mind is telling your heart that what you're doing is dangerous, and your heart says, who are you? Who are you to affect me? I don't care. You can't tell me what to do. That is really scary. Most people call that insanity. I think I'm losing my mind. What does it mean, losing my mind? My mind can't influence me anymore. Because the me does not respond. It is so completely self-absorbed and self-sufficient. I don't need to hear anything. I don't need to. And you hear it in the language. Remember when the Chassidim came from Russia to America, and they heard Americans respond. When you ask them, how are you? They say, I'm okay. Oh, you're okay? You're okay? No need for growth, no need for improvement. You're okay as you are? That's horrible. It was so offensive to the ear of a chassid. That's it, you're okay. And what about serving God? And what about... That was a while ago. Now if you ask somebody, how are you? I'm good. I didn't ask you about your morality. I asked you, would you like to have a drink? And the answer is no, I'm okay. I mean, do you hear this? What, you think I need your drink? I'm just offering you I didn't mean to insult you, I'm just offering you a drink. No, I'm okay. I'm good. What is that? That's the opposite of what the holiness is bringing. This is the challenge to Hashem Echad, to the oneness of God. The challenge is the oneness of me. And that's way beyond selfish. It's beyond self-serving. It's self-destructive. It's the black hole in space. But let's understand why that is. Taki, why? If you're like yourself and you believe in yourself and you indulge in yourself and you give yourself everything you need, why would that destroy you? Why doesn't that make you the best, the strongest, the most capable? And we're promised in secular thinking, we're promised if you have a good self-image, if you believe in yourself, you will rise to the top and you will succeed in anything you want. And yet you look at the people who become very famous, very rich, and they immediately become self-destructive. Suicidal, drugs, all sorts of... What is this? Here's the secret. The Alter Rebbe says that the Yetzer Hara, the selfish impulse in a human being, is not true. I want, I need, it's not true. I don't want, I don't need. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, is evil not only because of what it suggests to sin, to misbehave. It's evil because it's false. And false is the opposite of truth, which means it is the opposite of goodness and holiness. Because goodness and holiness means true. Unholiness means false. The Yetzer Hara that feels like a need, I have to have this. What am I going to do without this? I can't live without this. It's not true. It isn't true. Alter Rebbe actually says that when the Yetzer Hara is tempting you to sin, it wants you not to sin. Because the Yetzer Hara is God's creation. The evil inclination is something God created, and it does what it does out of loyalty to its creator. Like you watch a cow all day long. What is it doing? Being a cow. God created it to be a cow. It is very devoted to its purpose and creation. God said, be a cow. It is a cow. Every moment, every second of its existence, it is a cow. Never gets distracted, never tries to be anything else. I mean, a real commitment to its purpose. It eats and eats and eats and eats. I mean, and you say, excuse me, what are you doing? I'm a cow. I'm a cow, I'm being a cow, that's all I know, that's all I care. It's perfect. But the evil inclination, or we sometimes call Satan, that is tempting you to do this, that, be selfish, it's like a cow. It does what it was created to do all the time, without exception and without question. Does it want you to sin? No, it just wants to do its job. And its job is to tempt you. So if you sin, have you satisfied its need? No. Have you satisfied your need? Well, you didn't need it until the Yetzer Hara convinced you needed it. Like a kid walking into a toy store and all of a sudden, oh, I need one of those. You didn't need it a minute ago. So you don't need it. The Yetzer Hara doesn't need it. That's why the more you indulge in it, the less you exist, because it satisfies nothing. In other words, the facade, the imaginary pleasure and need that selfishness demands only goes so far. The pleasure stops. The behavior continues. I still have to be me. I don't like myself anymore. I'm not accomplishing anything anymore, but I gotta be me. I gotta do it my way. I gotta be me. So if it kills me, well, too bad, I gotta be me. And then in the end, you realize, this is not me. Nobody, including my selfishness, really wants this or enjoys this. And that becomes an addiction. One of the ways of describing an addiction is a pleasurable activity that has lost its pleasure and you can't stop doing it. So as long as it's giving you pleasure, well, it's not an addiction, it's pleasure. You enjoy it, you do it. It becomes an addiction when you don't enjoy it. Not only you know you should quit, you really don't enjoy it. It doesn't give you pleasure. All it's giving you is pain, and you can't quit. That's an addiction. And what is the ultimate addiction? The self. The self-importance, the preciousness of self, the me to the exclusion of everything and everyone else, that's an addiction. Everyone has that addiction. But if you follow it, like every addiction, it becomes self-destructive, not self-serving. I don't know if it's directly related, but the previous Rebbe, in a part of his diary, the communists were going to arrest him. It was just a question of time. They were building a case. They wanted to make sure they had something to show the world, to justify what they were doing. So it was just a matter of time. And then one day, it became clear that they're coming to arrest him. He was in a hotel that he frequented. So the guy at the counter downstairs, whatever it's called, right, called the Rebbe, and said, "People are asking." So the Rebbe writes, the big tips paid off. They warned him. They called him and said, "Somebody's asking." So he went down through the back stairs, went out through the kitchen, and left the hotel and got on a train. He needed a couple of hours to, first of all, finish a mimer that he was writing, and secondly, to make a plan of who does what and what's going to happen. So he needed those hours. He just got on a train. And he took a private, what is it called? A private car, cab, whatever. And he was sitting by the window, and he finished writing the mimer, and the train was traveling along the river, and that was always very relaxing and calming. And the conductor came and said that there's a passenger who would like to see the Rebbe. The Rebbe didn't want to be distracted, so he said, "Not now." The conductor came back a while later and said, "The man really wants to see you." So the Rebbe said, in 10 minutes. Because he was already on his way back, and there were only about 10 minutes left. So the conversation won't drag on, 10 minutes. So the conductor brought this guy in. Turns out to be a nice Jewish boy, whose grandfather was a chassid of the Rebbe Marash, the Rebbe's grandfather. And he was now a high-ranking official in the KGB. The Rebbe says, I was very pleased that when he walked into the car, he didn't take his hat off, which means he wasn't completely assimilated into Russian culture. He didn't take his hat off. Anyways, he tells the Rebbe that he noticed him getting on the train, and his father took him to see his grandfather when he was a child, and he looks very much like his grandfather, so he wanted to come say hello. So one of the things that they spoke about, he told the Rebbe his title, a very long title. And then he says to the Rebbe, "What is your title?" So the Rebbe says, "Yid." So he said, yeah, we're all Jews, but what's your title? So the Rebbe said, "Oh, you're making a terrible mistake. the titles that you think you have, they're going to take away. And of course they did. Stalin eventually killed all the Jewish communists in the government. They're going to take away your title. The only title you will always have is the title Yid. And among Yidden, there are different degrees of devotion. Some will give their lives to save the Jewish people. I guess he was describing him. Some will give their lives for Torah, mitzvahs. Some will give their lives even for a Jewish custom. Describing himself. But the title Yid, that's the main title. We have a great gift that we were given an explicit role in our lives. It's not go find a purpose. Think of something to do with yourself. As long as you're alive anyway, you might as well amount to something. We were given an explicit, detailed description of why we exist. And that is our escape from self. If I was not created for a purpose, and I am not real, I'm not perfect, complete in myself, then it doesn't make any sense. This doesn't. If I can tolerate not being complete in myself, it's because I'm comfortable with the idea that you can make me perfect. That if I serve you, that if I'm here for a purpose, to serve a higher need, that's fine with me. So Yiddishkeit basically says, and this is what Hasidus explains and reveals, in the end, my needs are not real. Primarily because I didn't need to be born in the first place. I didn't ask to be born. So existing, being born, is already unnecessary for me. So how can my need to eat, and my need to sleep, and my need for money, and my need for love, and my need for security, how can that be real when I would be just as well off if I didn't exist at all? So it's like an artificial need created on an artificial existence. So if we were in touch with the truth, we would realize that all the needs that I have, I need like a hole in the head. I don't need all these needs that I have. Some people actually suffer from, I don't know what the professional title for it is, we resent having needs. I'm upset, I'm angry that I have needs. I have to eat, I hate that. Who did this to me? Finished. I don't want to need. I need to sleep. I hate that. I don't, but some people do. They're busy, they have things to do. What do you mean I need to sleep? They don't want to need to sleep. So really, all the needs, or what things we call needs, we don't need. In fact, if we did need to exist, would we, in our need to exist, make ourselves dependent on food? Never. It's a terrible plan. If I need to exist, I shouldn't have to eat, or sleep, or breathe. I need to exist. Why are you giving me all these conditions? But I don't need to exist. So the Eibishter created me, God creates me, and gives me these handicaps for some reason of His. I don't need this. When I realize that, then I'm not depressed, I'm not suicidal, I'm liberated. Because I know that there is a higher and greater need that I can actually contribute to. And since I have nothing better to do, because I have no needs, I'm free. I'm available. So give me a shlichus. Keep me occupied, because otherwise I have nothing to do. That's why the traditional response when in the Torah God calls to Avraham or to the response is Hineni. Hineni means I got nothing to do. Oh, you need something. Great, because I'm free, I'm available. So I'm welcoming this. Give me something to do. Give me a big job, because I have lots of time. I have nothing else to do. In fact, I was created to do for you. That's the difference between narcissism, the darkness of our generation, and the potential of our generation. And that's what we saw every moment, every day in the Rebbe. Absolute availability. I have a need, I'm here for you. And when somebody asks the Rebbe, why do you stand for hours and hours and hours giving out dollars? Isn't this taxing on you? So the Rebbe's answer is, nobody gets tired of counting diamonds. That's a nice, humble way of saying, I have nothing better to do. It's all about you, not about me. The Rebbe had a very bad cough, a chronic, for many years. Strange that after his heart attack in 1978, when he recovered from the heart attack, the cough went away. I don't know if the doctors did something, or it was from childhood, I think, that he had this chronic cough. So sometimes it was better, sometimes worse. So there was a night when people were visiting the Rebbe, and the Rebbe's the attendant, the guy in charge of the schedule, heard the Rebbe coughing really badly. So he asked the next visitor to wait for a moment, and he brought the Rebbe a thermos with hot tea. And the Rebbe waved him out of the room. So at the end of the evening, after everyone had come and gone, he went in to apologize. He said, I thought the Rebbe would take a minute, because of the cough, the Rebbe would take a minute to drink some tea. So the Rebbe said, hot tea is 6 minutes. It's not a minute. And why should somebody wait for me for 6 minutes while I'm drinking tea? It's not self-sacrifice. It's the true nature. If a world when the world will be perfect, we'll all be like that. Because that's normal. Normal means there's nothing interesting about me other than what I can do for you. So there was a doctor who came to attend the Rebbe, and they were talking about the Rebbe's character and the Rebbe's strengths. And somebody said, he goes to the cemetery to talk to his father-in-law for days at a time, for a day at a time. So he's very spiritual, very psychic, and this very insightful doctor said, no, I've been reading the Rebbe's writings. He doesn't go there for spiritual. He goes there because it's his job, and he brings us a bag full of homework. And he goes there like a soldier to do his job. It's not about being spiritual, which is so correct. And he didn't know that the Rebbe actually said that about himself. That the temptation to go to Israel to visit all the holy sites, the Rebbe said, not my thing. So the antidote to the ultimate darkness of our generation is the pleasure in serving. And that can only come from a very clear appreciation for the reality of God's plan. If the plan is not real, if it's not necessary, if God created the world without any real need, then we're stuck. Because my needs are not real, his needs are not real, this whole thing doesn't make any sense. And that's why in a secular world, they can't afford to recognize or admit that they don't need, because then what are they left with? Then it's fatalism, nihilism, suicide. But we have a Torah. We have a very clear blueprint. And we know that this plan is not arbitrary. It's not a whim. It is an infinite, eternal, true need that the Creator has that only we can satisfy. Without that awareness, we're left with nothing. And even children are beginning to feel this. You tell a child that you're going to take care of him and you're going to buy him stuff and you're going to make him happy, and they're not happy. They don't see any point to anything. Because now, at this stage of history, this is the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara today is not saying, have fun. That would be a little problem. The Yetzer Hara of today is saying, what's the point of having fun? So what? So you'll have fun for a while, then you'll come back to your room and be miserable. This is the darkness that we need to address. And there's only one answer. One true answer. Improving your self-image and loving yourself more, that's the exact opposite direction of where we need to go. That's what's killing us. The direction we need to go in is Hashem Echad. There's one reality. And you know what that feels like? Yes, you do. But you got the wrong you got the wrong reality. You experience that feeling about yourself. Now realize that it's not you, it's him. And maybe that's the meaning of it. Vayemahu yeh Hashem echad. You think, right, you thought it was you. No, it's him. But you know what I'm talking about because you've been there, where the whole world, everything is basically you. And if it's not you, it's a false god. It's idols. Now just make that little adjustment. Not oneness is true, but you're not the one. Hashem echad. Oh, that makes perfect sense. And what a relief, because my oneness is shallow and empty. Maybe the Rambam says that the other religions in the world, whatever faults they may have, made one great contribution. The world, far beyond the reaches of the Jewish people, the world is conscious and aware of Mashiach. Okay, not the right Mashiach. So that's when Mashiach comes, everybody will be able to say, okay. So you're the one. But you don't have to start from scratch and tell them that there is a Mashiach, there's going to be a Mashiach. They all know. They just think it's somebody else. So you make the little adjustments. So you're Mashiach. Okay. It's the same idea. When the world becomes sane, it'll be just a little adjustment. You see what that feels like? That's the Eibishter. So, that's real. I have to have personal experience. I was about, I remember, just before my bar mitzvah. and living in Crown Heights, hearing about the Rebbe. And you know how children talk when they have a hero, you know, when they idolize somebody. It's like, oh, he can leap over tall buildings and faster than a speeding bullet, you know, about the Rebbe. So here I'm hearing all of these things, that the Rebbe is the greatest and the best and the best looking. So finally, I go to 770. And it was Ma'ariv. That was davening. It was middle of the week. So there was a very small minyan upstairs in the and I could stand right next to the Rebbe. There was no, in particular, a little kid, they let you stand next to him. So I'm not davening, I'm just watching the Rebbe. And it came to Maiden, where you bow just your head, not your knees. And somehow, I don't know if the Rebbe intended it or it's just natural, when the Rebbe bowed, this is the greatest man alive. That's what I came to see, right? And he had a very large head with a very big hat. And he bowed. And it struck me so chillingly. Who was he bowing to? It was such the humility in the act was so real. He is humbled by something. He's bowing. The Eibishter became real. It's our only final hope, because it's no fun to be selfish. It was for a while. It brought us to this, crystal glasses. It's not fun. It doesn't do anything, because there's only one truth. And even my selfishness knows that it's not true. So the Rebbe modeled for us exactly the quality, the virtue, the godliness that this generation needs. He didn't ask us to have Mesiras Nefesh, to be willing to die for Judaism. That was the previous Rebbe. He didn't ask us to become geniuses and sit and study every moment of our lives and be totally absorbed in a world of knowledge and study. That was the generation before that. The Rebbe asked us for one thing: serve. Somebody wrote to the Rebbe that he's depressed. Serious depression. Almost every letter that Rebbe got was from somebody who was depressed about something and to some degree. And the Rebbe had different answers for different people depending on their... In this letter, the Rebbe says to the person who is depressed, the Rebbe says, I would like to be depressed too, but who has time? There's so much to do. That's the answer. That's the whole, that's it. There lies the entire solution. Yes, it would be so much fun to be depressed. Just to sit around, do nothing, and kvetch. Oh, what a pleasure. But who has time for this? If you know why you're here and you see how much there is to do, who has time for selfishness? So if you are selfish, let's talk practically. If you are selfish, okay, we are human. And of course you're going to feel moments of selfishness, but then again you feel moments of indigestion. So you make indigestion a lifestyle. Yeah, you have a bad stomach. What is it called? irritable, whatever. So that's it, that's your life? So if you have indigestion, you apologize. I'm sorry, my stomach is not feeling so good. So fine, you had a moment of selfishness. Apologize, be a little humbled and embarrassed by it, and go back to doing what you're supposed to do. Nobody ever said that selfishness was an alternative lifestyle. It's a weakness, it's an impulse, it's a hiccup. So you apologize, and you do what you were created to do. So don't take yourself so seriously. When you take yourself seriously, don't take that seriously. That's too complicated. When you find yourself taking yourself seriously, don't take that seriously. That's a hiccup of a Yetzer Hara. And we already know that it doesn't lead to anything good. It doesn't bring any real results. It's a dead end. And before you get to the dead end, might be a while, but it's going to be a dead end. So God gave us a great gift, and the Rebbe modeled it for us every moment, every day, constantly, even in the way he walked, the way every move was that of a completely devoted soldier, servant. There wasn't a moment where he was distracted from what needs to happen now. So, what do I need to do now? Every second. And of course, we're not gonna match that, or even get close. But now we have a direction. Now, when we're confused, we can always unconfuse ourselves and get reoriented to where we need to be, and every little bit. The Rebbe says, since we're so far in history, a little bit more service, a little bit more serving, and the plan can be completed. So I have to tell you an interesting way of, I'm reading this children's book. And maybe this is personally annoying that children's books are so beside the point. Jewish books I'm talking about. Frum. So there's this book about a little boy who goes to yeshiva, and his teacher takes the class once a month or whatever it is to the old age home to sing and entertain the old people. And this little boy hates it. He doesn't like going there. It smells funny. The people are scary. He doesn't see the point of it. Nothing happens. He didn't like going. One time the class went. This is how the children's book reads. The class went, and he was standing there singing with the rest of the class, not wanting to be there, and he noticed an old man sitting, staring at him and smiling. When he came home, he told his mother that he had never liked going because he didn't see the point, but now he sees. Now he's happy he went, because he realized when the man smiled at him, he realized that he was doing a big mitzvah. Does that bother you? It's horrible. It's horrible. There's a lonely old man. Nobody ever visits him. He doesn't know why he's still alive. Maybe he wishes he wasn't. He doesn't see any pleasure in life. And these cute little kids come and they sing the song, and he remembers the song from his childhood, and it gives him a little pleasure, and he smiles. And what does the kid think? I did a mitzvah. The Yetzer Hara is so evil. That's what you're conscious of? That's what makes you feel good. That's why you would go back a second time. Now you understand the reason for going, because you get to do a big mitzvah. Even doing a mitzvah can be corrupted. Yes, it is a mitzvah. That's what you're conscious of when an old man who hasn't smiled in months finally has some pleasure in life, and you're thinking, "Ooh, I did a big mitzvah." At the beginning of Hasidic life, a Chassid, a man, the word Chassid didn't even exist at the time, a man came to the Alter Rebbe, and he said, I'm wealthy, I give a lot of tzedakah, I love giving tzedakah, I have a lot of hospitality, people are always in my house eating, but it bothers me that I'm not sure, and I don't know, how do I tell, how can I know for sure that I'm sincere? That I'm giving the tzedakah and having the guests sincerely. It seemed like a legitimate question. Not only does he give tzedakah, the man is working on himself, and he wants to internalize and make sure that he's doing this with sincerity. Beautiful, no? Self-development, self-improvement. The Rebbe said to him, the hungry man who eats your food enjoys the food sincerely. That was the answer. Basically, the Rebbe was saying, you missed the point completely. You think tzedakah is a big mitzvah, and you want to be sincere in your mitzvahs. Tzedakah means the man is hungry. That's what is it? How do you come into the picture? You are sincere, you're not sincere, you're very sincere. That's like you want an emotional pat on the back. Well done. Yes, you are a Baal Tzedakah. You're a philanthropist. What? That's what you think when you're feeding a hungry man? That's the black hole. A child should come home, even a child, should come home and say, Ma, this guy smiled. He was happy for a minute. Can I do that again? Not, I got a big mitzvah. No, makes sense? And that was the Rebbe's model. I got a big mitzvah. A man is waiting, came from a distance, it's late at night. I should make him wait 6 minutes?
Partner with Rabbi Friedman. Visit itsgoodtoknow.org/support.